Hello everybody and welcome to this first Inside Implant Studio live webinar of 2017. It's a part 2 series today, you can see, of the last webinar we did in 2016 in late December. Today we're going to keep talking a little bit about some basic considerations about how to place an implant. Today we're going to look further into the software side of things. And today on our side we have myself. My name is Thomas Hiddegaard. I work in 3Shape as a product manager, and I have my colleague Jan with me on our side as well.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where we are in the world.
So as briefly mentioned, we're going to look very much on some of the how to actually implement the basic considerations that we covered in part 1, Jan, in the actual software and how to operate the software a little bit more. But first, I believe we should just start with a quick recap of what we discussed in the first part 1 series webinar for those of you guys who didn't have the time to tune in on that.
Remember that all our webinars are on YouTube and also on our corporate website, so you can always go back and watch them again if you need to remind yourself, or if you did miss one, there is always the webinar library where you can see them again. So from the first part before Christmas, we talked about how to select the correct implant. And of course here we talked about which size to choose, which length and which diameter. Should I use tapered or straight ones? Should I use bone level or tissue level? So there was a lot of discussion going on about that, and of course as many doctors there are, as many ways to do this there is. So that was the first one, but what we actually agreed on was one goal. It is important that the implant is covered by enough bone on all sides to ensure the stability and osseointegration. So no showing threads, no bone material or anything on the implant, straight, nice, fresh bone covering all the implant is really important. The other question we talked about was how to select the correct placement of the implant. Should it be to the bone side, or more in the middle, or should I go close to the sinus or not? And again here we finalized the discussion with agreeing on that at least 2 millimeter bone in all directions. So towards the sinus or the nerve or another implant, there should always be at least 2 millimeter bone. Of course, you as a surgeon will know when to divide or deviate from this rule or these rules, and you do that with your own experience. But as a general understanding, it could be good to keep these goals in mind all the time. The last one was how many implants and where. And there we actually talked about how to place them to distribute the forces, if we should place 4 or 6 or maybe 8 implants, what are the best, and if we should have angulated or straight positioned the implants. For example, in the lower jaw behind the foramen, should we angulate them posterior or should we just put them in straight, depending on which system we are using. And here again, the important goal was to spread the footprint, so have as wide footprint as possible, so we can spread the forces over a wide area. So that was the recap from last time. So
and as you already mentioned, Jan, the full webinar is already available on YouTube, right? So if you have more things you would like covered in greater detail, or see how we arrived at these goals, then please go to YouTube, search for 3Shape and find that webinar for the full discussion.
Very good. So let's go to the demo.
I think it's time now to see how we then actually implement these goals when working with software, and how these goals can help us when we work with software. And of course is thinking about the goals while working with the software is essential, because that's when the benefit of using a planning software actually comes to life, really, that you can take your considerations into the actual surgery.
So the first selection we had to make, or the first choice we had to make, was actually how or which implant to choose. Of course, there are a lot of manufacturers out there, a lot of brands and so on. Here we have a patient that is missing 2 teeth, the upper first premolar and the lower first molar, and what to use. Of course, first we have to consider the question, is implants here the first choice, or should we do something else? But as we see on the teeth, here actually implants could be the first choice. And because we are talking about that, let's focus on that. Otherwise, this webinar would be really short.
Yeah.
So if I open up this case, I have prepared it. So I have already imported the scans from the Trios and from any CBCT that uses DICOM. I have also made a design of the crown and have also marked the nerve. So I will just skip through these pieces, and if you didn't know, you can always see and find the lectures of how to do this also on YouTube or on our corporate site. So here I have aligned the teeth.
We're really gonna focus on, you can say, the actual implant planning here, not so much preparing the data, right? So
no. Because this is pretty much the same for all cases.
Yeah.
But the implant's placement and the selection of the implant, it varies or differs between all cases and patients. So this we can learn once and then we know it. So let's go on to the actual placement. So I mounted both the upper and the lower here, because that we can do. We're going to work on the left side on the first molar, so I only marked the nerve on that side. And now when we come into implant planning and the placement, the software asked me to place the implants in a specific position, and I can just easily zoom in to the first molar position, and I have the plus sign where I'm going to place the implant. And when I click that one, the library will open. And it will open with the last used one, and I also can go back and I can see all my implants that I have. Of course, if I'm using only 2 or 3 different implant systems, I don't have to install them all. So in the settings, there's a possibility to click a box for the implants I want to be installed. So if I only install the 3, this window will be very small and it's easy to find around it.
Yeah, makes sense. But yeah, not many. I think in total we have more than 50 implant libraries, and that list just continues growing, and it's great, and it's something we're really proud of also, that we can bring all of this original data together into our software platform. But we also know not many use all implants like you do here, but this is to show it.
Yeah. And also if you import them all, because sometimes it's good to have them, they are free for the users, so you can install them all. But anyhow, to make it easier to find, you can actually mark the implants that are your favorites with a small favorite mark. And when you have done that, they will actually show up in the top of the list, and there you have your favorites.
Okay, so here I could have favorite lines from multiple manufacturers in principle. So now if you went into another manufacturer and marked another line.
So we go to Biodenta, we have this tapered one, I mark that one, and now when I go back to favorites, it's there.
All right, then I've created quick access, you can say, to, so if I work with multiple manufacturers, that's neat, that's cool.
And it's good because sometimes you use one tapered in the upper jaw and you use straight ones in the lower jaw, so you have your both systems. Maybe you have referral patients coming in and they are always asking for the same, or you are always using the same, then you have your favorites here. This bar can also be used for anchor pins and other things.
All right.
So you have the same treatment of the library for all the items that are in there. So now, for example, if we are going to place an implant on the lower molar, I'll just click the implant and a selection box turns up. It's columns and tables where I can see all the implants that are available from this manufacturer in this specific line. So for bone level SL active, fully guided, it is only these 9 coming up. So they don't have more in their own library, because we are getting all the libraries from Straumann themselves or from Biodent and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So there can be no errors. We have all the measurements and everything coming in from the manufacturers. So if I choose one implant, I start to choose one in the middle. This is a straight implant, and when I double click it, it would automatically pop in to the correct position and be placed. And if I have done a good work with my autonomy and the crown, the implant will be placed correctly immediately, and I can go on and I can click next. So placement can be very fast, but of course it's always nice to go in and adjust some things.
So it actually just by selection, then it puts the implant in relative to your to the anatomy that you've created on the implant side here. Now when I see the cross section here, maybe we should just take a quick second and just explain what is it actually that we see in the cross section, because I see some yellow, some brown, some green, some so how should we work with this, a view like this one? Yeah.
What we see here is first we see the CBCT, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We also see the outline, the surface of the intraoral scan from the trios.
That's my soft tissue contour level that I have on that brown outline.
That is correct. And just in this section. So here we don't have a tooth, we actually have soft tissue. Yeah. So this is the outline. But in the upper jaw there is a tooth, so here we can actually follow the tooth instead. And if I zoom in or zoom out or pan in or out mm-hmm. through these sections, we can actually come to a tooth and so on. So this always describes what the trios has seen. We also have the green implant. It's green because it's positioned correctly, and this position can work. When I go too close to another implant or too close to a specified area like the mandibular nerve, it will turn red instead. It turns red because the safety zone actually touches this specific area. And if I go outside, it turns green again. So it's a very easy way to see for me if it's possible to place it here or not. And the good thing is also that it's not possible to actually go on and click. So I will be stopped here.
And also the safety zone, there are some minimum values we can put in, but the user can basically decide, you know, what safety zone do I feel comfortable operating with to a certain degree, right?
That is correct. Either if you are comfortable, you can change the safety zone for all your plannings, for all your implants that you do in the settings, but you can actually go in and change it just specifically for this implant. For example, if you need to squeeze an implant in and it's very, very thin, but you need to do it, and if it turns red, everything is stopped. Mm-hmm. But then if you mark the implant and you go in over to the left to set the custom safety zone, we can actually activate the manual setting. When we do that, the implant turns orange, so we are warned that we have done something manually, and here we now can change the radius of this safety zone. The safety zone, they are of course an old legacy from the analog planning times when we actually didn't know if it was exactly or half a millimeter to the side or anything else. Mm-hmm. And today with digital we could actually make them smaller, but as the regulation hasn't catched up yet with the digital, we still have the old regulations. So this is the standard measurements that we have in for all softwares.
All right. So there's a way out for every need, you can say. So in general, the safety of using a safety zone will prevent you from proceeding in the software and making, you know, violations. But if you actively take a decision, then you can actually move on. That's great.
So here we have selected a straight one. If I want to make it longer, I just pull this lever and it jumps to the next step in the library. So nothing in between, just to the next step. And this is also from the manufacturer. So I cannot do anything wrong. I cannot choose the wrong implant or change anything outside Straumann's list of implants here. Mm-hmm. If I need to, I can go in and I can actually change to another implant. So for example, we see here that we are coming quite close to this concavity in the bone, and we want, this is on the lingual side, and we want to have this area a little bit more apart from here. So we can actually go in and change to another implant system, and we can make it as long, but in a different shape. So by doing that, I can get more space between and have my 2 millimeters. And how to know that this is 2 millimeters? Well, we know that the safety zone was 1.5, and actually we have rulers and everything inside the software. So I can go in and measure. So here we actually have 4 millimeters. So I could have worked with the first one as well. So this is quite good to know. Where is it possible? How wide is my bone actually here, my jaw? What would be possible to do? It's almost 13 millimeters, so it's quite wide. So it's good to know that we can put in extra rulers and do measurements. If I want to delete them, I just click the deletion box and it takes back. What I also have here is, of course, the possibility to measure something else. It's the bone density and the quality of the bone. So if we look at a position here in the middle where we have the extracted tooth being the alveolar, actually, we have as low as 60 Hounsfields. So this is almost air. It's very, very empty. And at the sides, of course, we have 1,400. So this is stone hard. It's really, really bone hard. And of course, we need to position the implant so we get a primary stability to begin with. So if we want to do a direct placement or impression immediately after the placement, we need primary stability. So here we actually have to place the implant. So let me just go out. I can do that. I stop this one. And here I can now move the implant up so I will have primary stability in the upper part, and maybe I could come closer to the sides as well. So let me just go back and change back to my Straumann. I could even go a little wider maybe. That is good. I still have my 2 millimeters. So this is 4.8. It's a molar, so it's okay. And now we actually come into more dense bone where we have better primary stability. So this is a really important consideration to make. What would I like to do with the implant directly after surgery? Do I just want to drop it in and suture and wait for healing? Then almost any implant would actually heal underneath there, even if the bone is not that dense. But if you want to do some immediate loading or impression, or just put on a temporary crown without occlusion, of course, then you need some kind of primary stability as well. So let me just show again, if you go in next to the implant, and we can see here that we have 216, we have almost 1,000 here, it's over 1,000, so it's very good. So I can actually see here I have 787. This is sponsored by Boeing. And here I can see, but it's actually hard to see on the other side what is happening. So what I can do is actually I can turn around and see how the bone is changing when I scroll around the implant. So now the implant is in a locked position. I'm following the implant around, so you can see the bone changing. So I can see that there on the back side there is only 139, 85, 38, and then it goes up again. So one side of the implant has a very low density and the other side has a very high density. So it would be nice to actually have some kind of tool to see all around the implant immediately without having to scroll around it to search for good bone. Because maybe I would place it a little bit more here or here just because I had better bone. And also if I was looking in this view, it could be nice to actually see is it better to place more distally or more medially.
And I know that you've made your voice heard internally here also to our development teams, and so small pre-announcement is that some of these clinical diagnostic tools that we really have in the software already, we are improving them, and we are planning to launch them in the first release of 17. So there we have extended, you can say, the clinical value of the software even further.
That sounds very nice. I'm very happy to hear that. So we know now if we're going to use a long or a tapered or a straight implant. But how about positioning? So let us change the case here.
We have a quick question while we change case.
Yeah.
So another question was, when we do the spinning around the implant in the cross section, how do we operate that? How what did you press? What you're using the mouse wheel.
I'm using the mouse wheel, that I can tell you. Also, there are two more keys on the keyboard that we always use when using the software. It's control button and it is the shift button as well. So when using the shift button, we actually change size of things like the nerve or the panoramic curve and so on. And if we use the control button, we can change the views, how we look at things. So we can pan through and walk through the bone, or we can turn around it depending on which view we are in.
So it was a combination of holding down control using the mouse wheel. If you do the same thing in the cross section without holding down control, then you will only zoom in and out. So the control key really gives you the power to pan through or move around.
That is correct. So for example, let me show you this. If I'm here, I'm establishing the nerve. If I hold down shift, it will actually change the size of the nerve by holding down that. And if I hold down control and scroll, it will go through the sections. So if you follow my mouse cursor, you see here where I am in the bone. So the foramen is here in the front. So if I now hold down control and I scroll, I go towards the foramen. So there we have it. And if I go the other way, we follow the nerve through. So this is a good way to actually establish the nerve by scrolling and following the cable, as you say, or the tunnel through. So then we know if the nerve is placed more buccally or up or down and so on.
Perfect.
If we only use the lateral view, we can see where it is, of course, in height, but we don't know how it's positioned buccally lingually.
Yeah.
That is also important if we want to sneak an implant in on the lingual side, for example, like we did on the other side before. So we continue from nerve definition. We have come to implant planning, and now we come to how to place the implants. So if I look at this, this is a typical fully dentulous patient where we have some good bone and some less good bone. We could see it already on the pano that we have some changes in the front. We don't know what that is. We can of course go in and check that. We see it even better here on the true panoramic. Of course, this panoramic is the one that we're used to see, where the jaw is folded up like a world map. But the tangential view is actually the true panoramic. It shows just that slice. So we have a very, very good exact measurement and can do measurements and everything in this one as well. So we are going to look out for these ones here. But this area here, it looks nice, just in front of the foramina, like in position 4 or 3.5. And also further to the back, it could be a good position to place it. So let me just close this again, and we come back to this 3D view. If there is a view you don't use, like from axial, you can just close it, and it will go to the left side, and when you need it again, you can just call it up again. So you can play with this window, you can drag them up and down, so it's easy to maneuver and to navigate inside the software. So let us just place implants here and see what happens. When I work with a fully dentulous, of course, I can place implants on every tooth position. So here I'm going to do all on 4. So I will place the number 6. I will use my bone level, but I will use the same one that we use so we don't mix things up here. So that one, and I will use 10 millimeter. I will double click, and then it doesn't jump in anywhere because I haven't sectioned it. The software doesn't know where the tooth are, so it will just appear in the software. So if I place this marker on my desired position, I can actually easily go in and position my implant here. First click margin, second click apically. and then I have it. So if we now turn down the denture and the soft tissue, can remove that totally, we can actually see the implant slightly visible. Let me turn down the CBCT as well. There we have it, how it's positioned in the bone. And here it's quite easy to see. We can see that we have some window there of the implant, and that is also confirmed on this view. So if I go in and I place the implant more in the correct position, like this, I have firm, dense bone all around the implant. The edges are exactly, because this is bone level, I go free from the nerve, so I could actually go longer, but then I will actually violate one of the goals we had, or the rules, 2 millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be the closest we have. And I can see that the axis of the implant is actually coming through the crown of the bridge or the bridge work.
Mm-hmm.
So no buckle holes or anything else I have to work with angulated abutments or anything.
Oh, that's actually interesting that you indirectly also use the safety zone to control your three goals there, by saying that, okay, if one thing is maybe the software doesn't warn me, but if I know that if I get out into air with my safety zone, then I'm also violating the 2 millimeter around all sides rule indirectly. And here you're close.
I'm close. I'm making this decision. Of course, I can just put it up a little bit and then we are home free.
Yeah.
So that works. But it's a very good tool to quickly use the safety zone as a quick ruler,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes everything safe. So good. Also, now where we have positioned the implant in one direction, we can also see it in the other directions. We have the panoramic again, how it's positioned. And as we talked about in the last webinar, we are following the straight line. So even if the pano is curved, we see this as the straight plane, and we place the head of the implant in the same level. So it will be positioned straight with the bone. So this is to avoid angulated abutments and the problems that can come from that one. So when doing digital, we can actually go for the perfect positioning at once if we are able to. So we have the first one positioned, and the length and size and everything is good there. So just close that one, and I wanted to show you this as well, because here we can see that it's fairly good positioned, but I want to check out how is it really looking there. And here I actually have a tool that I can use, so I can watch the implant from all directions. And if I see it here now, I can actually see that it is a little bit outside. But in this view, I can actually place the implant as well. And more accurate than this, where you actually can see where you are in the bone, it cannot get. So this is extremely nice tool
That's
to
a
use.
really fantastic view, and actually gives power to the large 3D view. You can really get it up in a good size on the screen and actually see the precision very clearly.
Yeah, and depending on your settings, of course, for the CT quality, you can even work in a normal X-ray mode if you like that. So you can see the bone as it is. Here with our tools, you can change the blackness and the contrast and so on for the X-rays as well. But this is a nice way to watch and view the implants. So 2 millimeters surrounding on every side, bone covering on all sides, and a good distribution by following the actually axis of the bone. So if we place this straight, this is now in a level, and there we have it. And then we have the implant almost also in a level. So if I just go in here and I can change this, we see how it actually works there immediately everywhere, and I can position it perfectly. So whichever window you are working in, it works in all windows. So it's good. So if I'm placing more implants, let's say that I now want to go to the position of the canine, I again will choose an implant, and I will mark where I want it to be marked, and then I can position it either in this view or in this view, depending on what you are used to working with. So I like to work here, and immediately I can position it and I can use the same principles as before, getting the same angles.
And again, you're controlling it down in the 2D view just to make sure that you know your planes and how things are rotating, but you immediately see it in 3D, so you can actually, work in 2D and 3D with some practice at the same time, and that's really where it becomes powerful.
Yeah. So this is just where I place it to see, but I check it up here,
Yeah.
so I can actually see immediately how it looks. And if I now turn this off and make it semi-transparent, I can see how they are placed. And if I like, I can go ahead here and work with it as well. So here we see exactly in the bone. If we see it from the side, we see that it follows the line as well. And of course, here in the front we have a lot of excess bone sticking up, so this could be a problem for an all-on-4, where we have the deep implants and then we actually have bone sticking up. But that is also one request that I have, so let's see what the future will tell us.
Yeah, again, I think the future might hold a solution to that also.
Yeah.
without without being too specific.
Yeah. So I have all my views where I can position my implants. I can spread my footprint so I have it nicely distributed. It's easy to choose the implant. I just place where I want it to be placed. Then I put it inside the bone with two markers, first and second. And it's in there, and then I go for the fourth one. So by placing it and distributing it very broad, I have the security of getting a good stable bridge in the correct positions. So here I know that I can put it down a little bit more. I can check my views from all directions, and I can see immediately that this looks good. And now we come to one of the big benefits also with the software, because a common insertion direction of this would be really nice. Then it would be just spot on to place the bridge without any strains or anything. How can I do that?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're asking. First, I think I just want to quickly get rid of this old. But we have ways of grouping implants, and basically the button is over here. And when we work on these large cases and it's is a cross arch, then maybe I need your guidance, Jan, to tell me what kind of grouping would actually make sense here. But basically the functionality works by you can create one group, you can create multiple groups. Mm-hmm. But if I now just said for now I want to create a group, making sure that these two implants that we see on screen here are parallel with the same insertion. Then I mark them. I can decide which one is kind of the master, so which one will align to which. So right now 3.6 will align to 3.3. And then I press group, and then we see now the insertion direction of these two are completely the same and completely following each other. So whenever I change one, the other will change. If I don't feel that this grouping is the most correct one, then I can always go in and edit my groups, undo them, and then I could say actually what I wanted to do was to make sure that these two were grouped. Then again, I would simply work with these two linked, marked by the link icon also, and then I can ensure that I get exact same insertion. So that's the functionality we have at present with that. And if I wanted to create more groups, then I would just go in and mark again. Often for the distal implants in all-on-4s, we know we often work with some kind of angulation. So here grouping just these two is not necessarily that it will create the right grouping or the right parallelism because we need to make sure that they also follow the arch shape and whatnot, right? So, mm-hmm. but the functionality to create more groups is definitely there.
Very good. And I can really see the use for this, especially on one side, on the left side or on the right side, because you want to have approximately the same insertion direction, so you know that it's fitting passively.
Yeah, yeah.
So there is no actually strains on the bridge and so on. So this is really good. So we have talked about the different settings here. We have talked about which implant to select, if we should use a short or a long one. And of course in Implant Studio we can see immediately if a longer one will fit. So even if you don't use Implant Studio to go to the next step with the surgical guide and so on, it actually is a very powerful tool to just find out which implant to buy this time for this patient. So a long one or a short one, a tapered one or a straight one, and so on. We have also covered how to place the implant in the bone, how close to the sides, to the compact bone, how to read the bone density as well, so we know if the bone is good enough for immediate loading or immediate impression. We have our dear colleague in Spain that is doing this a lot, and we really appreciate that, and that is certainly a good way to go for some of you as well. And we also have discussed how to spread the forces of a bridge, for example. If you only have one-sided bridge and we place 3 implants, we all know that we should place them like a tripod so we can spread the forces a bit. But this also actually works for a full jaw where we can place 2 implants on one side and we can align them together so we have a nice passive fit, but still the forces are spread over a wide area. So this pretty much covers what we talked about in the first part of our webinar. So please go back and watch that again, and then come back and see this again if you need to, because then it will make more sense again, of course. And yeah, what will happen more in the future? What are our plans for the upcoming webinars?
And so the plan is that we're going to continue doing these live series of webinars where we both decide topics based on input from you users. So if you have anything, then when you receive evaluation forms for the webinars you've attended, please let us know if there's anything you really want us to try and focus on. What is it that you're struggling with in your daily practice? That's the plan, to keep it rolling, and keep engaging you guys with what we're working on and what our thoughts are, what our plans are, and that's going to keep rolling for all of 2017. I think the next one we're scheduling is going to be in February. Exact date and time will follow in the follow-up email to this webinar. So that's the call to action. That's to watch your email inbox, because we're going to send you the schedule for the next webinar in this week. Also, Jan, we actually had one question specific to this case that we just showed now with the full arch.
Yes, let's go back there. Yeah.
And the question is about the scan types coming in here.
Yeah.
And actually we have a webinar on YouTube already that covers this these type of cases, because it is a special workflow, you can say, that is working with an existing full denture as a radiographic stent that is then marked and CT scanned and then combined with the patient CT scan in the software. And there's actually 2 webinars covering the practical aspects of running this in the clinic, and also covering the software already available on YouTube. So I can really advise you to go to 3Shape or to youtube.com and then find the 3Shape channel. Just search for 3Shape, and then there's a program called the Implant Studio Live Webinar Series.
And there we will cover this about the dual scan protocol, where we actually place the denture with the markers inside in the patient's mouth, take an X-ray, and then X-ray again the denture without the patient. And by doing that, we can actually combine the 2 images, and we get the exact positioning of the soft tissue, and we can also use the teeth from the actual denture to place the implants So if you have a denture, you can use that. Otherwise, you can just make a wax up or print it through the new 3D printer you have bought, maybe. Because you're going to buy a 3D printer anyway, because you're doing this surgical guides. So maybe you can use it for this too. Here we can actually place the implants according to this planning that we are getting from the laboratory. So dual scan protocol. Yeah.
Exactly. So the link to the implant, or to the playlist on YouTube, is actually shared in the chat now here on this webinar, so you can find it there also. But I guess that was it. That was it for today.
Please call in on the follow-up and ask for things that you want us to go through. If you have special cases you want us to do, I'm actually open to do a special session where we just do 3 or 4 very difficult cases for you, where we go through them and we discuss them. Maybe everybody could be live as well, so we'd like try to do this in a new way, or we just do a follow-up on different things inside Implant Studio, so like functionality, how to do this, where can I find this tool, and so on. That is also possible. So please contribute and ask for what you need to know about Implant Studio.
Perfect.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Thomas, for assisting me. And also thank you everybody out there, and please keep in touch on the follow-up format later on. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you, guys.